Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Abby Robinson. I am the acting CEO of Atlas Corps, and more importantly, a Class 2 alum. We are excited to welcome you here today as we will be talking about the Atlas Corps with At America Indonesian Public Sector Leadership Initiative. So the goal of our call today is to really deep dive into what we're doing with this program and initiative, as well as to share some of the effective practices that go into completing the application for Atlas Corps. Some of you may have joined us last week for our kickoff call, which is an amazing coming together of representatives from the US Embassy in Jakarta, as well as At America, as well as some sponsors, supporters, and just longtime leaders in Indonesian and American relations. It was amazing. And I invite you to visit the webpage, indonesia.atlascorps.org. It has all the details about this initiative. And for those of you who may not be from Indonesia and are joining us for the call, it is a great time to be here as well, because you're going to learn some deeper insight into our Virtual Leadership Institute, as well as effective practices for the Atlas Corps application. So on that note, I'm going to invite, if you have questions, you can write them in the chat. You can also message them to At America. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Meredith for an introduction and then to kick off our presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Abby, and welcome everyone. It's so nice to meet you all and to be sharing some information about this initiative with you. And feel free to put your questions in the chat as I'm talking, and I will come back to them at the end. And I'm going to kick off my presentation. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with what we do at Atlas Corps, or maybe you didn't see the call last week either, Atlas Corps engages talented global professionals committed to social change in leadership development programs. Our classic program has been operating for 15 years, and it's a 12 to 18 month professional fellowship serving with a US host organization, either in person or online. And last year, we launched a new program called Virtual Leadership Institute to continue and deepen our engagement with global change makers, even while travel is still difficult. Because Atlas Corps believes in the power of helping rising leaders throughout the world connect across borders, whether it's online or in person. And so now we are recruiting Indonesian public sector professionals for a special initiative within our virtual leadership programs. So what is the Indonesian Public Sector Leadership Initiative? It is an online global community to empower Indonesian public sector leaders who are known as Atlas Corps scholars. And the three key elements, which I'm going to go into more detail about, are these 5 learning modules, professional development electives, and a public policy project. And what can you gain from participating in this program? The goal of the Leadership Institute is to prepare scholars for public sector leadership in their communities. And so scholars in this program will gain benefits like enhanced skills that increase your social impact at home, and increased connections with Indonesian and international peers. Because Atlas Corps scholars join our network of more than 1,000 social change professionals from 104 countries. So in addition to meeting other amazing Indonesians, we're expecting 40 in this program. In addition to meeting those other Indonesians, you'll also expand your global network around the world by connecting with the Atlas Corps network. And then you will have advancement in this policy project implementation. So I'm going to go into more detail about that, but this is a way to dive deeper into a specific topic of your choosing, and get sort of that more hands-on experience with the field. And then also a chance to earn a year-long fellowship with a US host organization, because our top scholars will advance to the next stage of the selection process for our professional fellowship, which includes a matching process with the US host organization. And this is just a snapshot of our amazing and very photogenic community of 1,000 social change leaders from over 100 countries. This was our cohort 1 that started off our program in November. And so you would be connected to these folks and many other scholars and fellows online. All right, so this first element that I mentioned was our 5 learning modules. Our institute curriculum is based on the modules of orientation, developing self, developing others, building movements, and reflection. And those are the topics that we feel are necessary for social change leaders, regardless of your particular field, to develop those skills and in order to be more effective social change leaders. And key elements of each module include a keynote speaker, an interactive workshop, self-led activities, peer coaching groups, and community building activities. You will have the opportunity to go through online activities associated with each module. In the next element of this program is the electives through our online course on Canvas. So while some activities are required, you'll be able to customize your schedule by which electives you select. And these are just examples of some of the topics that we have activities for within our 3 most primary modules. And right now we're working on adding even more electives based on our scholars' public policy interests. So we are definitely checking out some of those public policy interests in our application to get a sense of which public policy topics will be most relevant to you guys. You'd have 3 to 4 weeks to complete each module, and within that period, you'd be able to work through the activities on your own schedule. So while there are some like live activities, there's also these sort of self-led activities online that you can kind of do on your own schedule. You'll also be able to engage with other scholars in online discussions in these activities, and I love seeing the comments section on our activities with our online course. So the next element of this program is the policy project. What is the policy project? Each scholar will also submit a policy project that you'll design, research, and enhance throughout the initiative with the goal of applying the knowledge learned and presenting a final policy paper at the end of this program. And it can be an existing or new activity. So whether you're working on something now that excites you or you want to start something fresh, either way, it's pretty flexible. And the application does ask you to describe your policy project focus area. And this question is to get a sense of the policy issues you want to work on. It's okay if you don't know exactly what you want your project to be. More details will come once you join the program. But it's just to get a sense of an idea. And these are some examples of the social issue areas that you might choose to focus on, like health and nutrition. Maternal health could be a topic that you might choose to really focus your energies on. And you could be looking at, okay, I want to research whether policy X has been effective or not in improving maternal health outcomes. Or you could be thinking, okay, how am I going to influence policy? I want to launch a public awareness campaign to influence their government to either enact a certain policy or something like that. So the idea is to positively influence the legislative process on a particular area of your interest. And here's just a kind of an overview of the process that scholars will use to develop their policy projects. Our online course will support you and give you the tools in order to complete each of these steps. And our peer coaching groups are groups of approximately 8 scholars led by an Atlas Core group captain that meet once a month to talk about your policy project development. And you'll be able to get feedback and support from your peer coaching group throughout the process and, bounce ideas off of them and talk about, these topics that interest you. And so those are the 3 major elements of this program, the 5 learning modules, the electives, and the policy project. And so next up, I just want to briefly touch on the application process. So you can learn more about how to apply on our website at indonesia.atlascore.org. And take a step to prepare for your professional advancement by applying today. Our priority deadline is March 5th to be considered for a cohort that will begin in June and run through September. And a little bit about our eligibility requirements. So to be eligible for this initiative, you have to be a citizen and resident of Indonesia. You have to be aged 22 to 40, And part of the idea is to have like a cohort of people with a similar level of experience, and so that you can best exchange, you can engage with like-minded, similar peers. You have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and you have to have at least 2 years of professional experience in the public sector. And that could be different kinds of things. It could be government, could be political groups, it could be nonprofits that work on good governance or policy issues. There's no one size fits all idea of a public sector leader. You have to be English, proficient in English. All of the activities are going to be conducted in English. And that's going to be the common language with our broader Atlas Core network as well. So that is a requirement of the program. You have to have the technology capacity to participate in video calls. And you have to be available. This program, it does include 3 to 5 hours per week on average of either scheduled or self-led activities. So make sure that you have the time to commit to that if you want to participate in this program. And we'll be inviting our top candidates to join the Virtual Leadership Institute and enroll in their program. And we're looking for approximately 40 Indonesian participants in this program. So some application tips. How can you make sure you have a good application? So for this program, and really some of these tips apply across our programs as well if you're applying to other things with Atlas Core. One of my top pieces of advice is to be specific and provide examples. So when we ask you to explain why you're interested in the program, don't like a generic answer would start off, or a lot of answers start off with like, oh, I want to gain skills, or I want to expand my network. Great, but think about, go a step beyond that and think, okay, what skills do you want to expand? Or why do you want to expand your network? What's your goal there? Go a little bit deeper and don't just answer the bare minimum. If you're talking about your public sector experience, give examples of what were your responsibilities in that role? What accomplishments did you do? What specific policies did you work on or do advocacy on? So don't just answer the bare minimum. Try to give some examples as you can. Highlight your public sector experience. So obviously we're looking for public sector leaders, but like I said, it's not one size fits all. And sometimes your career, it may not be obvious to an outsider how it fits in the public sector. So make sure it is really clear that you are a good fit for this program. And whether it's government or an advocacy group or an NGO, whatever your exact career or field is, make sure your connection to the public sector is clear by highlighting it in your 1-paragraph biography and your essays so that we can see, oh, this person fits this program. There is an essay question, or it's not an essay question, a 2-minute video about why you want to participate in the program that we ask you to upload. And partially, and this is, not just to get a sense of who you are, but also to make sure that it's going to be a good fit to do an online program where there are a lot of video calls and things like that. So practice a little bit before recording your video. And I recommend like writing out your answer before recording and just briefly practicing it. You should sound natural, and it's not meant to be a professionally made video by any means. This is meant for you to be able to record at your desk like we're doing right now. But don't try to like improvise or speak off the cuff. It should sound polished. And then also, speaking of polishing your words, check over your spelling and grammar. This program is conducted only in English, and while we don't require an English test like a TOEFL or IELTS, your application needs to demonstrate your fluency, and so it should be well written and professional. Have a friend proofread it if you can, if that's something that doesn't come naturally to you. Make sure that it's going to be polished in terms of your writing and your English fluency. And write a strong 1-paragraph bio. So this is the first essay question of the application, is to write 1 paragraph about yourself and your career, and to write it in the 3rd person. So instead of saying I am senior program director, I'd say Meredith is the senior program director. This bio is the first essay question that our selection board members see when they're reading your application. So this is our first impression of you. So and we've included actually specific instructions of what to include in your bio. For example, your most recent and relevant work experience or social issues that you're particularly interested in. So make sure you read those instructions and follow them. And it's not meant to be your life story or your mission statement or anything like that. This is meant to be sort of an understanding of your professional career. And there's actually plenty of examples on our website of other fellows and scholars, how they wrote their bios as well. So you can check those out if you want to see some other examples. But make sure you've written a strong bio, because that is our first impression of you as we're reading your application. So you want to make a strong impression. And then next up, I want to get into some of the questions that we hear all the time, and then also some questions from the audience. So I'm going to turn it back to Abby to go through some of the questions we have.
Great, thank you, Meredith. And these are excellent tips. I feel like these are tips that people should just know when applying for anything. So thank you for sharing that. The clear grammar, video is increasingly a tool people are using. So learning how to just at home record a great video. So thank you for sharing those. And now let's ask some of these frequently asked questions. So first, what is the time commitment of the program? What can one expect?
Sure. So Atlas Core scholars should expect to spend approximately 3 to 5 hours per week on online activities and assignments over the course of 4 months, June, July, August, and September. The activities will be a mix of live and asynchronous sessions. Some will be, we'll have some calls that are like, okay, Thursday morning, this is the time that we're having this call. And then other activities you can do sort of on your own schedule. Like I mentioned, we'll have 3 weeks, do these activities by the end of the 3 weeks, and you can kind of do it at your own pace.
Great. And when will the live sessions take place? What if I have a conflict and can't make it?
Yeah, so our goal is that the scheduled video calls are held between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. in any given time zone to accommodate participants across numerous time zones. Fortunately, we are dealing with a specific geographic population here, which has, I believe, 2 time zones. But be aware that we also have, Atlas Core staff and our speakers who are facilitating these sessions, and our Atlas Core group captains that are in other time zones. So there may be some things that, people are not necessarily on an Indonesian time zone. So we do say, it could be any time within 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. to accommodate participants across numerous time zones. And we'll finalize the exact call times closer to the start of the Institute. Our call times are subject to change as we analyze participants' time zones and attendance. Sometimes we learn as we go along. And while scholars are encouraged to attend live sessions to better make new connections within the laureate or within the Indonesian community, they will have access to recordings of sessions if they're unable to attend live.
Great. And now you talked about this institute is virtual. We have our scholars. And there's also the opportunity to become an Atlas Core Fellow. So how can I become an Atlas Core Fellow?
So anyone can go to our website right now, anyone Indonesian or from basically any other country outside of the US can actually go to our website right now, apply.atlascore.org, and see the application process for applying to become a fellow. It is a longer application process than our Virtual Leadership Institute. But you don't necessarily have to worry about doing that right now. What we're going to do is scholars who participate in this program and who fit our fellowship profile and complete the requirements of the Institute will be invited to submit a longer application for the fellowship. And the application includes more detailed information about your employment history, professional skills, essay questions, and 2 references. And then from there, top candidates will be invited to a Skype interview with our selection board. Applicants that pass the interview stage are designated as semi-finalists for the fellowship, which means they're eligible to be considered for a placement with a host organization. And then hosts will select the semi-finalists who are the best fit for their available positions. You should be aware that the fellowship does include slightly different eligibility requirements from the Virtual Leadership Institute, such as an age limit of 35. You have to be committed to living on a basic living stipend and returning home at the end of the fellowship. So make sure you fit those requirements before applying. And so, again, like I said, anyone can apply right now, but also virtual leadership scholars who are completing the requirements and doing what they're supposed to in this program will receive priority consideration for the fellowship. So I encourage you to apply today for the Institute, which is both a shorter application and coming up very soon. So I encourage you to start there. And then maybe as you learn more and go through our program, then you may be invited to fill out an application for the fellowship and receive that priority consideration.
Excellent. And actually, as a follow-up question related to the Institute as well as the fellowship, it comes from Hani. And Hani asked, I'm currently employed at an organization. So the first part is, I'm wondering how current scholars are balancing full-time employment with participation in the virtual institute. And then the second part, should someone who is currently working full-time become a fellow, will they keep working at their current organization, or what happens? So those two parts, scholar and fellow dynamics. Yeah.
So if you're a scholar, most of our scholars are balancing Virtual Leadership Institute with a full-time job. So it's not only is it doable, our program is designed for someone doing both of those things. It is meant to be only 3 to 5 hours a week. So it is something that you should be able to participate in the evenings or the weekends. Occasionally we could have some of these live calls that could take place during business hours, but again, most of them are either based on people's availability or we are trying to take that into consideration, especially given that this entire cohort is concentrated in Indonesia. So we'll be mapping that out closer to the Institute. It is meant to be doing two things at once, your current job and the Institute. If you do get selected to become a fellow, and we're actually going through this right now because some of our Virtual Leadership Institute scholars who started earlier have been accepted for our March fellowship starting next month. So we are working with them right now on explaining what that looks like. And it is possible to do the fellowship and continue on in Virtual Leadership Institute at the same time. It is we'll give you kind of some, if that does happen, we'll give you a little bit more information about, or actually by then you may have already had some experience with like, okay, this is the time commitment it is, and I have a real sense of what this looks like. Could I balance that with a full-time position at fellowship? But again, just like balancing it with a full-time job, it is something that you could potentially balance with a full-time fellowship as well. You may decide that actually I really just want to focus on the fellowship, which is a much deeper engagement, and that's okay. You would still be part of our broader fellow and scholar and alumni network by going through the fellowship too. So you would still gain a number of the benefits of the program if you decide to focus solely on the fellowship, but you might not get all of those benefits, like for example, coaching on your leadership project. So if that does happen, we could sort of talk through what's the best option for you and decide what makes sense. And there is a little bit of overlap in the curriculum, but not enough or not so much that you couldn't benefit from both of those activities if you choose.
Great. And Meredith, we have a few questions directly related to the application. And I was wondering, could you put the apply slide back up so everyone sees where to go? And so our first question is from Ria, and it is about the recommendation letters and asking, reminding us how many do you need and any tips on what makes a good reference? Who should be asked?
Sure. So first of all, for our Indonesia program, we're not actually seeking recommendation letters. This is a shorter and simpler application than our fellowship program. So don't stress about it if you're just applying for the Virtual Leadership Institute. For the fellowship, we do require at least 2 references, and you can submit up to 3. And I'd say those should be people who can speak to your professional skills. Former supervisors are a good one. Sometimes people choose to have like maybe an academic reference, which can work, especially if they can speak to your especially if you like worked with them on a project or something like that. The fellowship is not really an academic program. I prioritize professional contacts, but some people do choose to use that. And occasionally, you know, a peer might make sense, but I would try to focus on people who are senior to you and can speak to, you know, your strengths and your fit for the fellowship program.
Excellent, thank you for that. So reminder, for this Indonesian Public Sector Leadership Institute, references are not required. Should you be moved up to eligibility for the fellowship, then references are required. Thank you for that clarification.
Great.
Now looking at questions regarding the policy project. So Anonymous asks,
Yeah.
I just don't know. Where can I get ideas? What should I do for my policy project?
Sure. So some ideas are to look around in your community and what are the topics of the news that are interesting to you, or that are hot topics in your local community. Talk to local officials, or reading your local media or local or country media outlets. What are the topics that are coming up for you guys these days, and you know, the things that everyone's buzzing about or debating or saying, you know, did you see that article, or did you see that this happened? Those are things that are you know, potentially going to be an interesting topic. And then research the key policy topics for Indonesia. And there's a wide range of things that could fit here, because I mean, public policy touches so many areas of our lives, whether it's health or education or you know, human rights, any kind of thing where the government is making policies that affect our lives. Any of those things across you know, that run the gamut. Those could be potential topics.
Great. And from Slamet, a follow-up question regarding the policy project is it meant to be started and executed once the Virtual Leadership Institute kicks off? Can it be started before, after? How well defined do I have to be?
Yeah, so it can be either a new or existing project. So for example, you know, an example of an existing project might be, maybe it's a topic you've researched before, maybe either in college or graduate school. Maybe there's a topic that you focused on and did your thesis on, and you want to go above and beyond or dive into a deeper topic within that. That there's potential for that. Maybe you're at an organization where you're researching this topic all the time, or you research one area of it and you want to, you know, go in a different direction. Those could be things that you decide, okay, you know, maybe here's, I want to narrow my focus area within this, or maybe even just use this as my policy project. If there's something that you're already working on, that's cool. If it's not, that's okay too. It could be something that you start in June with the beginning of the program, and then work on a little bit for each of those 4 months. And so it is meant to be something that you can complete sort of within a time range close to the institute, that you would be able to make progress and have a finished product, or some kind of product at the end of those 4 months, even if it continues on past that. So, you know, even if what you end up with is like one a policy paper that maybe you still want to go dive deeper into and expand on it, and maybe it's not the end for you, that's okay too. The idea is to make progress towards completing a policy paper by the end of the 4-month program, but that doesn't have to be the beginning or the end.
Excellent. Ashley, a follow-up question from Slamet is related to, is it possible to engage with a project at our existing organization? So instead of directly focusing on some type of policy, focusing on a project that I may also be working on, but just want to enhance. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm not totally sure if I understand the question. So working more on something that's not a paper.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't mind, I can jump in a little. Sure. And respond to this. And I think a key element is that it is a great idea to have some alignment with what you're currently doing in your day-to-day activities. And a reflection thought is that project, how does it relate to policy? And so organizations are often focused on policy issues, even though it may not be an organization directly focused on policy creation. Is your organization working on health issues or human rights or environment? Could you offer some additional policy development support? Even fundraising, there's policy related to fundraising. So think about how that project you're working on in your organization could also be connected to policy. So this is an opportunity to maybe flex a professional skill that you may not have developed before and specifically related to policy. So our real focus is on policy, which is a unique aspect of this initiative compared to the general Atlas Core Virtual Leadership Institute. And just think a little bit about how projects can be related to policy. So it's an opportunity to really learn something new.
Great points.
Great. Well, with that, those are the application questions I have, and this is a more general question. I will say we are nearing the end of our conversation today, so please send your questions. And again, this will be posted it's on our Facebook page, Atlas Core, facebook.com Atlas Core, as well as youtube.com Atlas Core, and At America is also sharing. And Meredith, where can I learn more about who are the Atlas Core Fellows? Who are the Atlas Core Scholars?
Sure. If you go to our website, and I believe there's even like a shortened link of fellows.atlascore.org and maybe even I think scholars.atlascore.org. Both of those pages have a page where you can even filter by country and have some other filters to try and find other folks who maybe even have a similar background to you. But you can read all their bios and read a little bit more about what they're doing. And for the fellows specifically, you can even see a couple sentences about what they're doing at their host organizations. So that's where you can see a lot more about our fellows and scholars.
Great. And actually, we had a question. Can you remind us how many scholars are we seeking to engage with this initiative? And then can you get a sense, how many fellows does Atlas Core engage in any given year?
Sure. So in this specific initiative, we're hoping to engage 40 Indonesian scholars, and hopefully this only grows from there. But for this June through September batch, that is going to be about 40. And for fellows, we had a sort of pre-COVID population of about 75 to 100 fellows each year. It was smaller over last year, and what we expect for this year as well is more in the range of 30s to 40s fellows each of the past couple or this year and last. And we're hoping to build on that next year, and fingers crossed and knock on wood in a post-COVID world. I did see one more question in the chat that I wanted to touch on from Ria. What if we work in the government sector as well as volunteering in the local community related to public sector too? What is your suggestion? Should we choose one activity to explore in the application? So I do say generally, or as a general rule, I'd say focusing on work experience as opposed to volunteering is going to be advantageous. So I'd focus on your work experience. And there is, I think you both on the application, you put your current work, and then there's also, I believe, an essay question asking about your public sector experience. Again, I'd say focus on your full-time job, but you can also mention your volunteering and add, make your answer even stronger by talking about your volunteering experience as well.
Great tips, great questions as well. Meredith, thank you so much for this insight. And as we near the end of our call, any last comments, questions, inspirations you'd like to impart on our listeners?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the questions. I'd say, don't wait until the deadline to start on your application. It does probably take, I'd say 2 to 3 hours to fill out your application. So, start now, take a look, and we are excited to see your applications by our priority deadline of March 5th.
Great. Thank you, Meredith. And thank you all of us for joining us today, both on the live call as well as on the recording. And a big thank you to the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta, as well as America, for their continued support. This is a collaborative effort, and we're excited. I think over the past 12 months, as our world has gone through dramatic changes, one thing that we have found is that we need individuals, we need leaders, and we need to connect them. So as we've been asked to stay home, we've limited our travel. The virtual world has opened up new opportunities, and this is one of them. So we encourage you to be bold. Visit indonesia.atlascorps.org, apply, tell your friends, tell your colleagues. We are excited to welcome a new group of Indonesian scholars to the Atlas Corps community and engage them in this public sector enhancement. And we are excited to hear from you. So if you have questions, you can also email apply@atlascorps.org. And we look forward to seeing your applications by March 5th. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.